We recently launched Liberation Martial Arts Online for trainers, collectives, and individuals that were looking for a program to follow that was chud-free or perhaps one that came directly from us. Thanks to Janela Lopez, Teddy G, and Silky for signing up. If you would like to sign up for Liberation Martial Arts Online, or you just want to increase your financial support for the Southpaw Project, you can find special tiers on our Patreon. If you'd like to listen to all of our shows without any breaks or interruptions, you can find uncut versions of our shows also on Patreon. This is Sam.
And this is Fight Study.
This episode was produced by SH, New Guy, and M. Shelton. Today, we have a very special edition of Fight Study, an international fight study. Rather than just me and Jason digging into the weeds of MMA, it's me, and I've brought two MMA and politically opinionated guests to talk to us about UFC 278, Maurice Shelton and Justin Podur. It's an international all-BIPOC anti-imperial podcast. Maurice has been on the podcast before on Fight Study episode 102. I'll put a link on the show notes. But for people who didn't hear that episode or need a reminder, Maurice, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
All right. Sam, thank you for having me again. My name is Maurice Shelton. I am originally from Atlanta, Georgia, United States of America, currently in the Kanto area near Tokyo. Former, I guess you could say, semi-retired mixed martial artist. I'm also a coach, fitness trainer, teacher, educator, activist, all of the above. Somebody who will slap you if you talk out of line. You know, I'm known for doing that, but I'm also a nice guy. I'm also an MC and an announcer, and I guess you could say I'm a fighter, just overall a fighter with a big heart. So thank you again, everyone.
And Justin, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and some of your work and also how you got interested in MMA?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I'm Justin Podur. I am the host of a podcast too, the Anti-Empire Project. And we have a pretty big series on modern history called the Civilization series, where we went over the Haitian Revolution, the French Revolution, the scramble for Africa. We're headed into World War I now. So if you want to catch up on all your historical studies from an anti-imperialist perspective, I'd highly recommend checking that out. I'm also a professor in Toronto at York University. And as far as martial arts go, my background is from Kerala, India. So when I turned around 20 years old, I found a place that teaches Kalari Payat, which is the martial art of Kerala, which is lots of weapons, a little bit of unarmed work. I did some Taekwondo, some Judo, and then for the past, I guess, 10, 12 years, I'd been doing Jeet Kune Do. I took a wrestling class at the local MMA gym. I maintained a solid white belt status in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I do roll with some better qualified people from time to time. So I'm familiar with the rule set and the move set in grappling as well. So hang around gyms. I have no meaningful qualifications in any of the MMA related arts, but it's always been something that I like to do and I like to study, and I study partly to make myself a better MMA fan as opposed to the other way around.
Is this your first time being on a podcast to discuss MMA?
Yeah, I guess you could say I did a halfway something like this with on Sina Rahmani's The East is a Podcast some time ago. We were talking about the politics and the history of martial arts, all in the context of the Khabib Conor rivalry. So it was sort of like we went into the history of Sambo and martial arts and boxing and all of the emergence of all these cultures in the 19th century and the context of imperialism and nationalism and how the UFC is also like a ground for these kind of rivalries to play out.
Maurice, did you have something?
Yeah, I was about to mention Fighting for Honor by TJ Obi. It's a book about basically like the origins of capoeira, and like it's related to the fighting systems that came out of Africa that kind of spread, and they're related to like revolutionary movements, in Haiti and other places. Yeah, something to talk about later. But yeah.
Capoeira is super interesting because it's based on hiding, right? You're hiding the fact that you're even doing martial arts behind, we're just singing and dancing, nothing to see here. Meanwhile, you're training.
And I wanted to shout out one more thing. I'm a podcast host as well.
Hey, bury the lead, Maurice. Yeah. You're burying the lead.
It's an all podcaster podcast as well. You didn't tell me that. Okay.
We were on hiatus, so I forgot to mention. But this is not information. It's a podcast about just about anything that you can name, but mainly about people of color, Black people in Japan, current events, news that affect all generations of people. So if you can check it out, it's in all of the platforms that you can find your podcast.
But let's get into the first fight, the welterweight title fight between pound for pound king Kamaru Usman versus Leon Rocky Edwards, where Rocky pulled a Rocky and took the title away from Usman by 5th round KO with less than a minute left. Rocky also took Usman's perfect takedown defense record. Usman has now given up one takedown, and that was to Rocky. He's only lost once in the UFC, and that was to Rocky. Only been knocked out once, also to Rocky. One more interesting fact, Rocky only threw one head kick the whole fight, the one that put Usman away.
Oh, yes.
So, Maurice, give me your impressions of this fight.
So, I'm not going to lie to you all. I imagined the fight going the way that it went from round 2 until the beginning of round 5.
Same.
Because what I saw from Leon Edwards was improvement, but I didn't think that it would be quite enough to put him over the top. So I think Kamaru executed his game plan, but he made maybe about 3 or 4 crucial errors, and then he also got away with bending the rules a few times, which, champions are wont to do. He had some home cooking because he was close to breaking Anderson Silva's 16-fight win streak record in the UFC, but it just wasn't in the cards for him. Everybody loses, so I think hubris was the number one factor in this fight, because I thought Kamaru he waded in far too comfortably in some of the striking exchanges, because Leon did actually let him come in and do what he was going to do. He ripped to the body, and then he shoots in for the clinch, and then he gets a takedown, or he bullies against the cage like he's been doing everybody else. And then he has good enough boxing, I'm talking about Kamaru now, where he can keep you honest and keep you guessing about where the proper distance is going to be for you to get off a strike. The one thing that I saw, and I don't know if Daniel Cormier had a flashback, but wrestlers, if you're listening, any of my grapplers out there, please take it from a striker. I'm not a wrestler. My back is jacked up. But I always tell people whenever I coach them, man, do not lean your head like that. Do not, if you're going to parry a punch, do not lean your head forward because you think that, I'm going to just take this guy. I'm going to go single leg, and then I'm going to go shoot in for a double because, I'm the man on the mat. No, man, you can get kicked in the face, man. Like, it's just like, if I were his coach, if I were Leon's coach, I was telling my friends this in a group chat, I would still be upset with him because he did not execute his game plan. He definitely improved his wrestling, because you saw in the first round, he took him down. which was not expected. But
that was unbelievable.
It was like I stood up. I was like, "Hey, what's going on here? What's going?" I was like, "Hey."
Not only takedown to mount.
Yeah, I was like, "Hey, are we at like a, you know?"
Yeah, this is like a masterful wrestler, and he was doing like, you know, the body lock takedown from like Gracie Combatives.
Yeah, man. I'm like, this looked like a Grappler's Quest tournament from like 1998 or something, man. Like,
how going on here?
It went as expected, except for the fact that the mistakes that Kamaru has made in the past, because Colby has stung him, Gilbert has stung him, a couple other people have stung him in the past, but he always recovered enough because he's in fantastic condition. Leon capitalized, and then also you're talking about a war of attrition. You know, we were talking about it before off on in the chat during the fights. You know, we're at elevation, even though you're training at elevation. You cannot underestimate laying on somebody, a grown ass man, 200 pounds for 23 minutes, and then you know that your body's going to be in the same exact condition as it was when you first started fighting. You know, so the head kick was perfect. I watched it, I don't know how many times. It's exactly what I would teach any of my younger students, any of my older students, anybody that wants to learn how to do self-defense. I'm like, hey, he put his hand in the right position perfectly. He blocked the hand, and then, hey, guess what? I got a shin for you, baby. You know, and sorry for Kamaru's family, because, you know, he's everything that I would want in a fighter. That's what Kamaru is. In terms of like the grit and the mindset. But he just made a mistake. And, you know, he said it himself, even champs make mistakes. You know, if he comes back, the first thing that I saw, I said in my mind, and then I tweeted out, as soon as that head kick lands, it's trilogy time. There's no other way that we can conclude this story. It doesn't end there, you know, unless there's an injury or some type of other tragedy. But you got to book the fight because it went exactly like we thought it would go until the head kick happened.
Justin, did that knockout surprise you?
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, we've seen Usman get knocked down, right? The burns. I was stunned even when I saw that. So my experience watching Usman fights was like, I started with the Woodley fight. The night that he won the title. That was the first time I actually saw Usman fight. And then I went back and watched many more of them. But that night, like my wrestling coach had talked about Woodley. You know, he was like, Woodley is such a strong wrestler that he controls where the fight goes and everything like that. So when I just turned it on and saw Usman just treat Woodley like a complete ragdoll, right? I mean, it was just he made Woodley look like a complete amateur. He just controlled him, and it was all wrestling. So it was like, this is what he does to another wrestler. So to see Leon Edwards take him down, to see Leon Edwards, you know, who's learned it late in life, and the commentators were saying things like that, right? They were saying things like, you know, you can't produce a D2 wrestler, whatever, D1 wrestler.
They
right?
were burying him in the commentary as soon as the fight started.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then he just, so I was completely shocked by the takedown. I was shocked. But then I was like, oh, okay, Usman's recovered. So just like Maurice, rounds 2, 3, and 4 went exactly. It was like Usman had figured it out, right? And Usman is, there are a lot of fighters that are like this, I find. They don't necessarily do that well in the first round. They just take a little while to figure out who they're fighting and what's coming and how it and kind of calibrate. And Usman's one of them. I think George St. Pierre was one of them. Like in boxing, there's that guy, the Welsh guy, you know, that Welsh guy that never lost.
Calzaghe.
He didn't hit that hard. Yeah, Calzaghe, exactly.
He doesn't hit that hard.
Yeah. No, he doesn't, right? He hits you many, 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 many times, right? Yeah. Calzaghe hits you many, many, many times, and you can't seem to hit him. But
Joe Slappy.
He's not a big knockout artist, right? And the angles are anyway. So he's a guy who never, like, he often loses the first round, and so I was like, okay, fine, I get it. Usman took a while to figure it out, but then this head kick, and it's like, there's one thing that I did notice about Usman, and I never wanted to say it. in the Burns fight. I noticed it in the Masvidal fights. He moves his head a lot, and it's kind of in a flinchy way. Like he kind of moves his head in this kind of flinchy way. His head goes way down, and it's like he's not even really looking at his opponent.
Like an overreaction?
Yeah, which is all stuff, you're taught not to do. And I'm like, hasn't anybody told this guy, like, you're the champion? Hasn't anyone told you not to do that? But so he kind of had this head movement, and I just had this thing. I was like, I don't know, I guess it doesn't matter. I guess there's nobody that's able to take advantage of it. And that was what I saw. Like that, this is why head movement is better in boxing than in MMA, right? Is because like you get your head down there and someone will kick it, it's harder to dig down for an uppercut, right, in boxing, but like the kick's right there, the knee's right there. And so I think it was Leon. It was a great move by Leon for sure, but it was also like a real, like, Usman really did kind of hand it to him with that head movement. The other thing that the Weasel said, and you guys probably listened to the Weasel. He's like an analyst, a YouTube kind of MMA analyst, but he was saying like Usman never goes for submissions when he has your back. Like he doesn't care about jiu-jitsu. Like he just does wrestling. So he was on Leon's back a lot in, rounds 2 and 3, and Leon can just get up. He doesn't need to worry. He just gives up his back and gets up because Usman's not going to choke him. He's not going to get a rear naked choke. He's not going to put the hooks in. He just doesn't go for that.
Rogan doesn't seem to know that.
Yeah. So, and there's a whole thing where they give wrestlers who are really good black belts in jiu-jitsu, even if they don't go through the whole program, because they don't want to have jiu-jitsu people lose to people without jiu-jitsu credentials. So I don't think Usman really like cares or, does those kinds of moves, but it would behoove him, I think, to have some surprises for Edwards when going into the next. There are things I think he could work on that would surprise Edwards in the rematch.
What did you think of the coaching by the Edwards corner for this fight?
Well, I think as a teacher myself, I think the key is the kind of person that you have. So if you have a student that's really cool, which is what Edwards is. I think Edwards was really cool and really calm and emotionally really like unflappable, to the point where the coach had to scream at him to snap him out of it. Because I think Edwards was sort of like, okay, here I am, everything's cool, and I'm probably going to lose. And he just seemed too easygoing about it. And so I felt like, yeah, this is what the coach needed to do. He needed to kind of snap him out of it and say, like, cut it out, stop being so easygoing. And, if you had someone who was panicky, if you had someone who was afraid or worried, that approach wouldn't necessarily work, right? That approach would actually freak them out even more or make them, turn off even more. But it's clear that the coach knew who was in front of him. I just, when you showed me that clip, and I immediately thought of Greg Jackson, and you were saying, I think you tweeted it as like, so Greg Jackson, George St. Pierre is fighting, I think it was Johnny Hendricks. He pulled his groin, so he really hurt himself, I guess fairly early in the fight. And he comes to his corner and he says, I think I pulled my groin. And then his coach, Greg Jackson, says, I don't care, George. I don't care. This is where champions are made. Hit him with your groin. Do you understand my mentality? So that's obviously, but see, for me, that was what George needed to hear too. Like if Jackson had said, "Oh, poor George, do you want to give up?" Right? George might have given up. He might have just been, he didn't want to give him that out. He wanted to be like, listen, like, this is not a time to be complaining about your groin. You will fix your groin later. So I thought, I guess the answer then to your question is, it seems to have been exactly what Leon needed.
Maurice, as a coach, what did you think about that cornering?
I think the sense of urgency was there, because obviously he dropped the middle 3 rounds until the stoppage. The clips are going, they've been viral. The guy, he was saying, stop feeling sorry for yourself. So it's one of those things where you can feel it. You can feel it. I've been on both sides where, my guy was the heavy favorite, and we're going in like, yeah, we're gonna smash this guy, and it's no problem. You just go in there and do what you've done thousands of times before you can execute. And then I've been on the other side. It's like, yo, you're gonna have to pull something out of nowhere, man, because I don't know how in the heck you're gonna do this. So I think that like Justin was saying, you never underestimate the power of the relationship that a coach has with their fighter. I think that if you do have an intimate knowledge of the tendencies and the mindset of your fighter, you can tap in. I saw this clip one time, some reel, I think, and it resonated with me because it was talking about like children who are good athletes. You can put your child in like a dojo or some gym, and you can have one of the best coaches ever or whatever. But the parent, as a parent, you're the first teacher of your child. So things about your child. You know what buttons to press that the coach that only spends maybe 2 or 3 hours a week with your child does not necessarily know, unless they have to be very astute and very observant. So the best coaches, the upper echelon of those coaches, whether you're talking about boxing, kickboxing, or MMA, or any other combat sport, any sport really, is they have an innate ability, or they have an uncanny ability to tap into those fears and those pain points of those fighters that they've observed during the training camp or in the run up to the competition. And I think that Leon's corner, they definitely, they said something that triggered him because, everybody's dragging Dean Thomas, and it's like, dude, Dean Thomas knows what he's talking about, because I think he had a flashback of Tyron Woodley's fight against Usman where he was deflated. He lost that fight. He was like, how you gonna let him do that to you, man?
Yeah.
And it was like, you could see it in his face. He was like, yeah, like he got me, man. He beat me. And like his mom in the back, I don't know if y'all watched the aftermath. Like the mom, Woodley's mother is like, yeah, baby, it's okay. Like, don't be sad that you beat my son. Like, like he owes something to you. But it was like, dude, psychologically, he was beaten. And there's no way that you can say otherwise. And Leon was starting to give off that vibe. Now you can go back and be a Monday morning quarterback and say, oh, it's not in him. Yeah, because we know as coaches, he has that dog in him. So I knew that he had something left. If it didn't work, then you can always say, hey, at least you gave it your all. And that's he saved up the head kick, because you're right. Because I was yelling at people. I'm like, hey, the head kick is there. For wrestlers, I tell all the guys that I work with that are grappler heavy, I'm like, dude, if you go against somebody that actually knows Muay Thai, or like, they have some really good stand-up, really good kickboxing, you got to be careful of the head kick, because that's the equalizer, man. That's like the Patriots going against the Falcons, 28-3. Somebody said, I think it was, or the guy off of MMA, like I forget. But it's like, yeah, you're down 28-3, and then you get a Hail Mary play, and it gives you 30 points, That's exactly what a head kick is, or a Hail Mary punch. That's what this sport gives you, because it's never over until it's over, until that last siren or bell goes off. So I think the coaches understand that. They know that Leon has the ability. He's good in every facet of the game. He's not spectacular. He's not a spectacular grappler. He's not he's an exciting striker. He knows how to pick you apart at distance, and he knows how to mix up the takedown threat. He knows how to mix up, the clinch. But he's not. Nobody was going in saying, "Oh, like Leon Edwards gonna knock Kamaru Usman's head off." Nobody was saying that. And anybody that does, please show me the records. Show me the receipts, because I didn't say that. If anybody was saying that, please tell me, because I'll call you, the new Nostradamus.
I just find Leon Edwards so methodical, it's just he's such a good student. Like, and what he does is MMA. Like, it's really, he's not, I mean, he's, I guess, a little bit biased towards striking, but really evenly well-rounded MMA, just across the board. And it was interesting because I kind of think of Usman that way. The thing that struck me about Usman is just the grappling advantage seems to be a strength advantage. Like, it's just such an incredibly strong man, and so it's clear, like, when people try to grapple him, there's just this feeling with it. It looked like that with Woodley. Like, Woodley just looked like, what the hell is happening here? Because they're both equally sized. And Woodley has a whole background of wrestling very successfully, but that just didn't work. So, but what I found with Edwards is just this well balanced, methodical work, and something came through. Like, I don't think it was a fluke exactly, right?
I think in the run up to the trilogy, I think you might have some people saying that it was a fluke knockout or that it wasn't set up. But I think definitely, and I know other fighters are saying this, you're never the same after a knockout like that. So I know it's going to be in the back of Kamaru's head, like going into the third match, that he has to be careful of ducking his head down because, yeah, like you said, Kamaru he's an awesome grappler, from all accounts from behind the scenes. It's like, yeah, he's a strong dude. That's why nobody's really laughing at him when he says, I will skip, middleweight and try to challenge for light heavyweight, because he's that strong, physically. And he walks around probably around a good 210. So it would be no problem for him to challenge somebody like a Blachowicz or some of the top 10 guys in that division. So I think, like Justin had mentioned before, you definitely gotta work on a couple of things to give Leon a different look, because he can get the takedown. He's proven that. Like, he'll get the takedown. Come hell or high water. Like, even in the third match, even with the threat of being kicked in his head again, I think he can get the takedown at will again. But once you get there, the ground and pound and like the lay and pray and sort of the mauling style that he has, it might not work as much because, like you said, Justin, like Leon, he was getting up. He's not threatened by like him taking his back and maybe choking him out rear naked or doing some other type of submission attempt. So we'll see. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to run up to the next match.
Two things I want to draw people's attention to. First is that before the actual KO, Rocky caught Usman with a hard liver kick, the kind Brandon Moreno caught Kai Kara-France with, or Anderson Silva on Daniel Cormier, where the toes dig in. It was not a low blow, in my opinion. So that was a moment Rocky could have capitalized on, but the ref took that moment away. But then again, if he tried to swarm him right then, Usman could have wrestled him.
Yeah, just take him down.
That shot was now on Usman's mind because it hurt. So when that high kick did come, Usman isn't just slipping the punch. You look at his positioning, he was also bracing for and sweeping away a body to low kick. You see his hand like sweeping away. And prior to that kick, he was sweeping away other kicks because Leon didn't show the high kick yet. So all of that left his head exposed. And even then, Leon had to charge up that head kick like a video game character for 5 rounds to take Usman out. That's how hard you got to hit Usman.
Sorry, Usman did contribute because he was moving his head into it.
Exactly. The second thing I want to bring up is something I've brought up a lot on this show, that if you're an orthodox fighter, because of the way your feet are lined up, it's natural to evade to your right. We saw Kai Kara-France do this. We saw Dom Cruz do this. And now Usman did the same thing, all against left kicks. I also think it was not only sportsmanly, but smart for Rocky Edwards to walk away after the head kick, because sometimes fighters wake back up after you start hitting them again, and you don't want to wake Usman up, because then it's like, oh, you were almost there. And then Usman survives, gets a takedown, and then it's going to go to the judges' scorecard. So that's how close it was from Usman winning this fight. And that's what makes the trilogy fight that much more interesting. But just like with the liver kick, that kick to the head is going to be on Usman's mind.
Oh, can I just say one more thing? The whole swatting low kicks away is another thing Usman does that I hope he, doesn't do. I hope he stops. I hope he stops doing that, because that's another thing I've always seen him do, where I'm like, he's kind of overreacting to some of these things. It's not classic defensive behavior where you're either blocking with your elbows, or shelling up, or obviously checking.
A note to our loyal listeners: if you love the Southpaw Project, please support us and help us get paid for our labor by financially supporting us on Patreon. This will give you access to exclusive bonus content, like early releases of Southpaw Deep Space Nine, break-free versions of our shows without interruptions, like you're hearing now, Liberation Martial Arts Online, as well as our private chat group on Discord. You can also make one-time donations at Ko-Fi, or show your Southpaw solidarity by wearing our swag. You can find all pertinent links at southpawpod.com. Next, let's talk about Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold, where Costa won a lopsided decision. You had two cringe fighters having a very cringe and bizarre fight. From initial reports, Luke Rockhold made $200K for his farewell fight. Previously, Dominic Cruz only made $175K for his main event fight against Marlon Vera. 14 fighters on this card made $20,000 or less. And this is a pay-per-view card. Maurice, I know this is something you want to talk about as far as payouts, unions, internal UFC politics, retirement, life after fighting. What are your thoughts on this fight and everything I've mentioned?
There's a lot here. There's a lot here, and it just makes my body hurt, like thinking about the uphill struggle that all of these people are going to have to go through. Because I think you're right. Cringe. I won't get into like the stuff that I personally know about some of these fighters, I'm not going to get into the gossip, but just what they've said on camera and on mic. It's unfortunate that, for me, as an aging fighter, I'm an old guy, by fighter standards, and seeing Rocco go out there and give a good effort. You could see that his skill set it's not completely cratered. He still has something left in the tank. But in the run up to it, seeing him call out certain fighters, in certain ways, he was engaging in kind of some dog whistle type talk and some dude bro chuddy talk. But at the same time, it's like, yo, he's out of line. It's like that meme with Anthony Mackie. He's like, he's out of line, but he's right. He's talking about the fact that, Uncle Dana is by the very nature of this industry, you have people that are, paid to knock each other senseless and hurt each other. So why would they want to unionize? Why would they want to unite for a common goal when they're all trying to fight each other? Right. I think the pay, it's laughable. It's completely laughable. And to see the legions of people on message boards and on social media defending the fact that, for example, Leon Edwards is getting $50K for that performance, the performance of the night. Are you serious? And Luke Rockhold has a point. Since I forget the actual, since 2005, 2006, you've been handing out the same amount of bonuses, and we've been going through one of the worst recessions since the bubble popped in 2008, the housing crisis. So what are we doing here? You get 16% of the revenue. What are we doing? What are y'all talking about when you say it's okay that, and again, Dominic Cruz, also cringy, from San Diego. He has a lot of stuff that he said in the past. It was yeah, but he's a good fighter. He's a great fighter, one of the best of all time, and it's unarguable. There's no reason why he should be getting his face broken like that for that amount of money, for all the time and energy that he's put into the sport. There's no reason. Rockhold pointed out, they don't get their health care taken care of. You got people that are addicted, or they're abusing pain medications because they don't have proper and comprehensive health care coverage, especially in the Americas. You have people that are dealing with chronic injuries and still going into fight and then turning in performances that are just completely lackluster. And I know this just from my own experience, seeing other fighters go in with like replaced hips or like, torn labrums, detached retinas, I mean, Michael Bisping, man, come on. Like Michael Bisping is like legally blind, man. He's legally blind, and like we're
that's criminal.
He has a fake eye.
He has a fake eye.
Pop his eye
and
out.
we talk about it like it's just like par for the course. And we have people that are defending Dana White and the ownership group for not paying these people for literally putting their lives and their bodies on the line. The fight with Rockhold, though, I mean, obviously he said it himself. He's gotten old. Costa put on the pressure. You saw it in the first exchange once Costa got the takedown, and how Luke's face looked once he popped back up. His nose was broken, and he couldn't breathe out the nose, and that was pretty much it for his gas tank. And again, as someone who's been in there and has like gassed out and has been, the old man like training against young whippersnappers that might be on secret juice, is not fun. So I give my kudos to Luke for sticking it out all the way through to the end. But the game plan was the saying goes, everybody has a plan until they get hit, right? And I think that's what happened here, because he was doing a lot of like high altitude, spinning, high energy movements that kind of depleted his gas tank even further without pumping his jab methodically and picking his shots. But, again, when you got somebody like the Eraser in front of you, on secret juice, it's really hard to kind of execute. Yeah.
For people who don't know what the joke is, he had a piece of paper that was taped onto his water bottle that said secret juice.
Something that hurts my heart is that we've come a long way from like someone like Senator McCain talking about this is human cockfighting to people openly mocking the fact that you have an organization like USADA, which is it's undemocratic, it's fascist, but it's one of those things that we look at as a necessary evil to kind of keep the semblance of a level playing field. But we all know Dana has his people, his preferred fighters, and then there's a whole underclass of fighters that are just trying to fight to just get into the UFC, just to make it into the UFC, to get 10 to show and 10 to win, and then they probably only take home maybe about $6,000 or $7,000 for like 3 or 4 months worth of work. There's still so many inequities that we need to address besides like performance enhancing drugs, that we joke about this secret juice and we kind of like just bypass all the other stuff that really needs to be addressed, like a union, and it sucks that Rockhold is at the end of his career to really talk his shit, because he's been talking a lot of stuff lately, like over the past couple of years, but like, why can't the champions do that? He had called out Adesanya and Ngannou and I think Usman as well. He was making fun of like them being African brothers or something like that. But it's like, dude, like we don't give the same scrutiny to these people that are the rank and file to like just say, hey, you got to stand up and fight sometimes, like against your oppressor, like the people that's handing you the the scraps from the table, and then patting you on the back and saying you did a good job while you lose like maybe 10 or 15 years off of your life, putting on a show. I think it really sucks, man, because I understand what they go through, but then when they actually get on mic, I remember that like a lot of these guys are not paid to be public speakers or to be the representatives of like workers around the world. And it's not fair to them, but they get put in that position anyway. So I'm like, man, I wish I could pull somebody aside and be like, yo, like you need some political education, man, because I was listening to Demetrius Johnson. I mean, I was telling a colleague of ours, a comrade of ours earlier, I'm like, I try to put on my blinders to the greats, because I don't want to know that Anderson Silva is like a Bolsonaro supporter. I don't want to know that Jose Aldo Jr. is, a fascist. I don't want to know please don't tell me, because, I grew up watching these people. I came up in the game watching and emulating these people. Mark Coleman, any of the UFC champions before like UFC like 40. I mean, they're probably pretty dyed in the wool chuds, and I don't want to know. Same with Pride. I'm in Japan. Most of these guys, if you got a cauliflower ear and you got a black belt in either judo or like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you probably don't care about like disabled people or LGBTQ people or foreigners. Like, I just don't want to know. Don't tell me, like, because there's too many of them, man. Like, just let me have something. So it sucks that Rocco, he comes out as like kind of like a labor champion, but at the same time, he's still saying certain things. It's like, dude, you're saying this because you're kind of being a petty bitch. I don't know.
Justin, politics and organizing is your lane. What are your thoughts on some of the things that Maurice has brought up and UFC pay and this fight?
Well, I think there is a history of including like very low key reprisals by the administration against the more collectively minded fighters. I gather George St. Pierre tried to organize a union. I remember that at the time. I think Ngannou has been in Dana's bad books for insisting on getting paid properly as the baddest man on the planet and so on. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a struggle. It's ongoing. And you're right that the martial arts having their origins being what they are, right? Like the Japanese martial arts coming from imperialist, Japan, like imperialist Japan's 19th century national awakening is when all these martial arts were designed. Judo, Aikido, karate as we know it, right? And like all these U.S. boxing's from the same period. Wrestling is from the 19th century. All of these martial arts come from these from the peak of global Anglo imperialism and white supremacy. So, it's going to have that stink, just like just like everything else. Brazil, you've talked about this, I'm sure, on your podcast. Like the Brazilian jiu-jitsu is basically like a cop martial art. Like it's the martial art of the Brazilian dictator's police, right? I mean, that's what it's like. Even though you can kind of tell, like, it's designed to hold somebody down when you have all the time in the world. You don't have to get away because you're the law, right? You put them down, you control them. The friends that are joining are your friends. So it's not like a martial art where you got to get on your feet and get out of there, right? It's the martial art where you can safely hold someone down for as long as it takes, to get them to comply. So I think of it as like, it is what it is, right? We've got to figure out how to make of it what we need. The human instinct to fight and use our limbs and our bodies to control and defeat other people is never going to go away, and it doesn't. I don't think it has a political bias. It can be used in any which way. So yeah, the struggles are there, and they'll never stop. They'll never stop, and I do think that the trajectory will be, at some point fighters will create some kind of collective, and people will go and join them, and that'll force the UFC to pay better, just to not lose eyes and audiences to those people. It's waiting for either a big enough group or a few big enough names to do that. I also think Habib, just doing his own promotion, like realizing that he has that. I'm sure there were interesting negotiations to try to get him to not do that, behind the scenes. So yeah, this is definitely a thing to watch. I don't think it's all bad news. It's a lot of bad news. When I think of, when I think of like what those undercard fighters go through, it is absolutely like heart rending. It's totally devastating. Now, just about the fight, like the whole, I know a little bit about Rockhold, and the whole thing about, oh, he went out like a lion, and he was so great. What a great way to go out. No, it wasn't. It absolutely wasn't. He spent a lot of time like literally turning his back and walking away from Costa, which is like, that's not something you're supposed to do. For whether you're taking it as an entertainment thing or as a orthodoxy of fighting doctrine thing to do. And the other thing that he did that I thought was really nasty was like the putting his blood all over his face like that. You're not supposed to do that. Like,
Cringe.
I don't know. I didn't like the way he went out. I didn't like the things he was saying in the ring. I didn't like the things that he said after. I don't think he's an example for anybody. So I just, neither is Costa. So yeah, I think your summary of it is right. Even what Adesanya did to Costa was also very wrong. It's hard not to take some kind of super guilty, pleasure in terms of the comeuppance or whatever. But that was also wrong. And,
Were you at any point afraid for Rockhold's life?
No, because it was clear he was going to run away if he had to run away. The worst thing that would have happened would he would have like gone over the cage and left.
I thought he might get a heart
left
attack.
The building. Oh, really? No.
Maurice, what did you think? Because he looked so tired, and they were in altitude, and he's getting hit. Were you just like, this dude might just fall over from exhaustion or something?
Yeah, I mean, that crossed my mind, but I was like, I think he has a pedigree long enough to save him from that. If he were going to collapse, he was just going to go out on the shield. Because like Kimbo Slice, Dada 3000, that could have happened if they were like heavyweights, and we knew that Rockhold wasn't like he was. I mean, he was training. Again, like you said, cringe master, saying a bunch of stuff that just, I'm like, I couldn't train in the same place with you, man. If you know like this.
No.
But I know that you're in good shape. Okay, you're a strong, chuddy kind of bro. So like, your heart won't explode.
But yeah, they're especially Costa's physique. I gotta say, I'm suspicious of in terms of
secret juice, man.
naturalness of that physique.
Next, let's talk about Jose Aldo versus Merab Dvalishvili, where Dvalishvili won by decision. Maurice, how much did altitude play a factor in this fight?
Well, Merab is known. I mean, his nickname is the Machine. Like, he has good cardio, so I think it didn't really affect him in his game plan. I think in terms of the explosiveness that we once saw with Aldo, just wasn't there, because he did defend, I don't know how many takedowns, like 16 or 17 takedowns, which is amazing in itself, because, Merab was going to come. He was definitely coming for the takedown, and he didn't quite get it. But Aldo was supposed to keep him honest with those heavy leg kicks, which he didn't pop it at all. So I think the altitude has something to do with Aldo pulling the trigger. Also, father time, because again, like we've seen with Rockhold, you saw with Cruz before in the card before, the skill set is still there. Like, you can see he still has something in the tank, but the party's not popping like it used to, man. It's not jumping like it used to, man. Like, this is not WEC Junior here, This is a old man Jose who has been through some wars, has been through some stuff. So, plodding forward and trying to make someone pay with the heavy low kick, it just didn't work. So I think we saw what we saw. Merab controlled the pace. He put a lot of pressure on Jose. He wasn't really able to string things together. So I think it was less the altitude, but more of the odometer. There's mouth. He's been that's his 39th fight, and a lot of people look at the record and say, oh, he's had like 40 pro fights. It's so many miles on the odometer. It's like, no, like actually for every fight, you got to factor in how much time did he prepare in the gym with like killers, because any fighter would tell you like the training camp is what in the weight cut and the dieting and all that. He had mentioned himself.
And 5 rounds. He mostly fought 5 rounds.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you're training for 5 rounds. So guess what you're doing? Inspiring, so that wears you down anything, because a fight can end in like 15 seconds, and you train for like a year for it. So I think just being who he is for so long, I mean, obviously is an accomplishment in and of itself. He's still ranked number 3. He was still ranked number 3 at the time of the fight. He's probably dropped down now, but still, he's like a top 10 guy. And I mean, I remember being like a young version of me and watching him like, man, he's good. That was like more than like 15 years ago. So Father Time is undefeated, man.
Yeah, Father Time. I was thinking going into this podcast that the altitude is also undefeated.
Yeah,
the altitude is definitely a winner, the winner of this whole night. But I wanted to say about this one, I didn't see it as Aldo getting old. I saw it more as the style matchup. I mean, Khabib said going into the Gaethje fight, he said, Gaethje has these low kicks. I don't like them. But it's hard to do low kicks against someone who's constantly moving forward and trying to get their hands on you, because you may land the low kick or you may miss the low kick, but that time that you were spent on one leg is time that person is making up space, getting closer to you to get their hands on you. And so, that knowing that was all that Aldo's opponent wanted was to, wrestle him and get him to the cage and so on. It would have been very hard for that to go a different way, the way I saw it. I mean, just the way Aldo fights and the way that Merab fights, I think it would have been pretty tough for it to go another way. We've seen, with that type of wrestler, I mean, again, Khabib being the example, like Khabib against Tebow looked a lot like this to me. It's not like Khabib got Tebow down. He just kept going and trying to get him and trying to take him down and not accomplishing very much. But because he was trying to do it, he won the decision.
If you love the Southpaw Project, become one of our financial supporters. It'll help us supplement the cost of running this project, the incredible time and energy we put into it 7 days a week, and you'll be giving us some breathing room, not only to juggle Southpaw with our day jobs, but also to expand Southpaw into other areas. We can't exist without your contributions. Show your Southpaw solidarity by supporting us at southpawpod.com. Now let's talk a bit about Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa.
Ooh.
Justin, as an MMA fan, is this a fight that interests you?
Yeah, I do. It does, because it's Gane is so technical, and he's so so movement oriented for someone so big, and Tuivasa is a classic powerhouse. So yeah, I think it does interest me. I would give it to Gane. I suspect Gane is going to win.
So I'm always interested in the mindset of the fighters, because Gane was right there. The title was his, and he made a miscalculation against Ngannou. Like he had it. And he,
what miscalculation? I didn't see a miscalculation.
It was the leg lock at the end.
Yeah, he's going for leg locks. It's like, why? I was yelling. I
see.
¿Por qué? ¿Pourquoi?
He could have won the decision. He was on top, and then he gave up the top position for a leg lock.
I see.
Yeah. So I want to see how he bounces back from that, because, you never know how someone reacts to adversity until you actually see it, right? So it's the same with Usman, never been knocked out, never been taken down. And the guy that he had previously beaten has, improved and closed the gap. So with Gane versus Tuivasa, Tuivasa, knockout artist. I think he gets picked apart because I didn't expect him to beat the Black Beast, but it's a heavyweight fight, so everybody has the power to turn the lights out at any time. So what I'm really curious to see is if Gane can he rally back and kind of gather all of that momentum that he had going into the title match with Ngannou to show people like, hey, I'm still that guy. I'm still good enough to be champion. Because if he forgets himself, if he gets discouraged, or if he's lacking in his preparation, Tuivasa can turn them lights out. He's shown it in the past several times. So obviously, as a fight fan, I'm interested to see if for Tuivasa, because he's right there at the cusp too. Anybody can get it, So if he does not allow Gane to be extra mobile and picking them apart at distance, if he can close that distance and put them paws on them, then we got ourselves a great matchup.
Heavyweight fights, basically 205 and above are always they always kind of hurt the humanitarian in me more than lighter ones, because it's like just no human being can stand a punch from someone that big, including someone that big. So it's just hard. It's hard in that sense.
Because they are that much bigger than other people, except their skulls aren't that much thicker.
Exactly. It doesn't scale. The hitting power the defensive ability doesn't scale to the hitting power.
Yes. Lastly, let's preview Robert Bobby Knuckles Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori.
Whoa.
Maurice, how do you see this fight going?
It's going to be a war of attrition. I think Vettori is going to try... He's going to try to initiate the clinch, and it's going to be Whittaker's job to stay mobile and to show his superior striking, and then surprise him with his own grappling skills. Because I think outside of Adesanya, Robert, he's well-rounded, and he's surprised us many times before. I think I was one of the people I counted him out against Romero, and then he went to war with one of the most feared fighters at that time. He's just maybe a couple of millimeters off of like maybe making Izzy, a number one contender instead of a champion. It was just a game of inches, because Izzy is so long. Vettori does not have that length, and he does not have that striking acumen that Adesanya has. So I think Whittaker takes this decisively in a decision, but I've been wrong before, so we'll see.
No, I'm on the same team. I don't think it'll be a decision, by the way. I think Whittaker is bad. I think there is, again, I've been wrong often and many times, but I think Whittaker is just like, I think the only person he can't beat is Adesanya, basically. And maybe the guy that may beat maybe Pereira. We'll see how that goes. I am scared for Adesanya as an Adesanya fan. I do think Pereira can, that is when I'm going to be watching, biting my nails. But yeah, I think of Whittaker as the champion in an alternate timeline where Adesanya is not there. Like I just think he's the best. You just can't beat Adesanya, which shouldn't even be like, it's not fair to expect someone to be able to beat Adesanya. I kind of felt that way about Covington. Covington is also excellent. He just couldn't beat Usman. But of course, apparently Usman is beatable.
Were there any other fights from UFC 278 that stood out for either one of you?
Yeah, no, we could talk about the Woodson Saldana fight. Like, I mean, again, as a coach, I am livid. I am beside myself because they were hyping Woodson's boxing up, and then he gets knocked down, and you had time to think about it. It wasn't like one of those things where it's a split second, like he might have had hit one foot up, or one knee up, and then he's like kind of standing up and he's not clearly on the ground. It was like, dude, he's clearly laying on the ground, and then you took like 3 steps and then you knee him. Like, what are you doing? You had to fight. You had to fight. You had it, and you throw it away. Like I don't.
He
get
didn't
it,
even
man.
run over. He sort of sauntered over.
Yeah, he
right?
just like stomped. He's like, I'm just gonna stomp on over here, man. I'm just gonna put my kneecap right in your nose. Like, hey, what's going on, buddy? Like, what are you doing, man? Like, so, and the first thing that came to mind, I don't know if anybody's a Simpsons fan out there, but it was it was that scene where the two brothers they have a restaurant, and he's like, sometimes I think you just want to fail. Like, I don't know, like if he. Some people, I don't know. This is some sports psychology 101. I think because he saw the victory right in his hands, maybe he got scared. I don't know. Maybe he got scared of success. Like, some people just are afraid to succeed because they don't know what's going on beyond the horizon. And I feel like that was the case there, man, because it was like, dude, you had to fight. You had it, and you just...
He did it twice. Because earlier he knocked him down, and then he sort of did a little taunt.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, he's playing around, jumping around. Like, come on, dog. Like, you don't... Like, and again, I don't know what the relationship the coach has with him, his corners, like, because, again, there's maybe so many other things going on in his life, his personal life that we don't know about. But as a coach, if I had told you, and we've gone over the rules and we've drilled and we've executed, we visualized, I would probably quit. I would fire myself. If
Find another coach, right?
Yeah, I would fire. Yeah, I'm like, yo, I can't do this because like
he's not listening to you.
Because you got to draw when you should have like had a KO win. Like, I don't know what to do with you, man. Like, unless you just hate me, that maybe there's something going on there. I don't know. You hate yourself. You hate me. You hate everybody. I can't do it, man. I'm a positive vibes only, dude.
I hope for like if I was Saldana's coach, I would also be like, I hope this draw is a lesson for you. It's actually not a bad outcome in the sense that if he had gotten an outright loss after doing all that work and essentially succeeding in the fighting part of the fight, it would have been unfair, and he would have probably become bitter. If he had won, he wouldn't have thought about his mistakes. But maybe this is the perfect decision for growth, in the sense that like he should have won, but he didn't because of these stupid things that he did.
They both could have won, because with Saldana, he first dropped him and then walked away, but not thinking he had a walk away KO. In the replay, then I realized he just walks away and points to the center of the ring to say, come fight me over here. And it's like, what?
He's on the ground. His face is on the mat. What do you mean?
You had it. You had it. And then he gets up. Woodson gets up, walks over there, gets dropped again, and then he walks away again.
It's like cool guys don't look at explosions, Like I walk away from my fallen foe.
And then he saunters back to your point, and they just, for the fuck of it, he hits him with a blatant illegal knee, right? So it's like three just big oof moments where you could have won. And then Woodson, actually, if he just said he couldn't continue, he would have won by DQ. So it ends up with a draw. Neither fighter gets a bonus.
Woodson's physique was also kind of alarming to me. It's like, this is a physique that can only be made from weight cutting.
He's fought heavyweight before in boxing.
Yeah, he's fought heavyweight, yeah.
I mean, what do we think of weight cuts? What do you think? Is it just we just have to accept it as part of life?
Weight cuts are one of the worst. I mean, I've been the victim of several bad weight cuts, and if we could eliminate it, I would be all for it. So like with ONE FC and some of the other fight leagues here, and then you have in boxing, sometimes they have the hydration restrictions. Like, you can't go like more than 10% of your body weight. You can't lose more than 10% of your body weight in water. That I think that would go even further in terms of like equalizing or leveling the playing field in terms of performance. Cause you got people like Costa running around, ballooning up. Or like a Patty Pimblett, it's lovable, or I guess it depends on who's doing it. But I'm like, yo, that's really unhealthy, man. Like what you're doing, like the yo-yo diet and just going up and down. And you're setting a bad example for other upcoming fighters, because, I once thought that, I just need to drop a little weight so I can have a size advantage. But then when I get in there after I've dropped like 20 pounds of weight in water, I'm like, holy shit, like I'm like stuck in mud, and like I'm seeing shadows, in broad daylight, like in people's faces, like they're infected with like some like biohazard, I don't know. It was some psychedelic thing that was going on when I had one fight, and it was just like, okay, this is not healthy.
You were dying, basically.
Yeah, I saw death. I saw the Shinigami.
You were dying of dehydration.
It was like, come with us. Come to the other side. I'm like, no, I'm not ready yet. It's not my time. So maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore,
Yeah. I think on top of checking for hydration, I think they need also more weight divisions, because a lot of people are tweeners. They're like between weight divisions. So then those people will be forced to pick. They have to either gain weight or lose weight, right? So if you had more divisions, and on top of hydration tests, then now you really got something. Now you can really start to prevent this, because I don't feel like one is really addressing it, because there's so many fighters where you see a huge size difference now and you realize, oh, one is somebody who's naturally this weight. The other one is a tweener who had to balloon up to this weight. And that's why they're so small compared to everybody else. So one, you just have the old problem now, which is just huge size differences.
So my scheme is this. This is what I think, and I'm sure there's something deeply wrong with it. But what I see is you come, that whole thing. You walk out. They check your gloves, whatever. You climb up the stairs. You go on a scale. And that's when you weigh in. And if you're 145, then you go in and fight. And if you're 146, you turn around and the fight doesn't happen. And that would happen a few times, but after that, it would, people would get used to it. I think you would have some pretty bad canceled events up front, but that would, then you can't get any advantage by that in that 24 hours in between weigh-in and fighting.
And you still can't preclude like people cheating. Like, I mean, the actual promotion still like cheating or actually saying, hey, like this happened when it actually didn't happen, So you have to make sure that you have some type of body or some type of collective that keeps the promoters honest, because again, Dana White privilege is there, and then you have other organizations. They say, hey, we got our guy, we got our girl or whatever, or our woman, and we'll just say, hey, yeah, they weighed in at a certain weight when they actually didn't. Or we'll just look the other way when they shoot themselves up with clenbuterol or something like that,
Yeah. Or they could always just do it in another country where they don't have to use the same commissions.
Fight Island.
Yeah.
Fight Island. Oh, Jesus. That's a colonial.
Rich billionaires having you fight on their private island, it's James Bond stuff. So you could see why fighters believe in so many conspiracies, because like this is like the second time billionaires have had fighters fight on their private island, because before you had Bodog. So if you got fighters who've had experiences like this, they're like, man, rich people, there's people behind the scenes. They could just do whatever they want. So of course, just from their experiences with promoters and shadiness, like anything seems possible. But this was a really fun show, really good to talk to both of you. I think we got a lot of good stuff out of this as far as politics and theory, action, plus fight commentary. So thank you both for coming on the show. Justin, do you want to tell listeners where they can find you and your show?
Yeah, just Justin Podur, Podur, the Anti-Empire Project. And yeah, come check it out. Thank you so much to both of you, especially Sam for hosting. Maurice, it was great to meet you. But Sam, anytime. I love your podcast. I love your work, and I'm really honored to be part of it today.
Thank you. Maurice, thanks for coming back. Where can people find you?
My name is my name, so you can find me on Twitter at Maurice Shelton. I'm on Instagram as well, maurice.l.shelton. Also, you can find me at This Is Not Information Podcast, anywhere you can find your podcast. And yeah, like Justin said, Sam, this was a great experience. Justin, I'm a history buff too. I want to get on your show. So, let's do some cross-pollination. I'm looking for people to let me talk some shit, about.
Well, you know what? I understand you on your Twitter. I saw Marcus Garvey, and I am getting to that interwar period sometime.
Oh yeah,
this year.
Find me in the whirlwind, man. I picked my pen up, or I should say, I was typing some stuff. I'm like, yeah, I should write some stuff about Mr. Mosiah, but I got distracted with a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, like maybe we can talk about the whirlwind. Yeah.
Right on.
We're making stuff happen on this podcast. It's not just a MMA podcast. It's a mixed Marxist arts podcast as well.
Yes. Hell yeah.
Yeah. That's what I like.
That's it for this episode. If you like what we do, support us on Patreon. We also have the Liberation Martial Arts program if you want to train with us from wherever you are. There's already a lot of techniques, exercises, theory, pedagogy, and even political theory, believe it or not. You can also find that on our Patreon. You can find Southpaw merch at our store. You can find all pertinent links on the show notes. With all that said, thanks for listening.